Clayton had always believed that quiet roads held quiet stories. Most evenings, he rode along the long dirt path that curved between the ranch fields and the forest. It was the kind of road where the wind moved slowly, the birds sat calmly in the trees, and the sky turned soft orange as the sun went down. Clayton enjoyed this peaceful time more than anything. After a long day of working at the ranch, he liked listening to the gentle sounds of nature and letting his thoughts settle. That particular evening felt no different at first. The air was cool, and the gentle breeze touched his face as his horse walked at a slow, steady pace. Clayton patted the horse's neck lovingly, thinking about supper and the quiet night waiting for him at the ranch. He had no idea that within a few minutes, his peaceful ride would change completely. As he rode forward, he noticed the birds suddenly fly out of a nearby tree, as if something had startled them. Clayton frowned and slowed the horse. He listened carefully. At first, he heard nothing but the soft rustling of leaves. Then, he heard something else, something unusual. It wasn't loud, but it was sharp, like a sudden cry carried by the wind. Clayton's body stiffened. He wasn't the kind of man who ignored strange sounds, especially if they seemed to come from someone in distress. He gently pulled on the reins and brought his horse to a stop. The road was quiet again, almost too quiet. Clayton turned his head toward the trees on the right side of the road, focusing on the direction the birds had flown from. The sun was sinking lower, and the shadows between the trees were growing deep. He listened again. Then he heard it, another sound, faint but real. It sounded like someone calling out, not in anger but in fear. Clayton felt a shift inside him. He was calm by nature, but he was also someone who could not ride away from a person who might need help. Without wasting time, Clayton nudged his horse forward and guided it off the main road toward the sound. His heart beat a little faster, but his mind stayed clear. He had been raised to believe that if he could help someone, he should. He didn't know what he would find, but he was ready to understand the situation first before doing anything. As he got closer, the trees thinned slightly, opening a small, empty area between the trunks. The moment he entered that clearing, he saw something that made him pull his horse to a sudden stop. A young girl, no older than 14 or 15, was being pulled roughly by her arm and hair by a man who looked frustrated and out of control. The girl's face showed clear fear, and she stumbled as she tried to free herself. Her small hands reached out toward the empty space around her, searching for help that wasn't there. Clayton's breath caught in his chest. It wasn't the kind of scene he ever expected to see on this quiet road. For a moment, he simply stared, unable to believe that something like this was happening only a few feet away from him. The girl let out a soft cry, and Clayton felt something inside him tighten, something that came from his sense of protection and fairness. He knew he had to do something, but he also knew he needed to be careful. He didn't want to make the situation worse for the girl. Clayton had always been thoughtful in moments of pressure. He had dealt with frightened animals, sudden storms, and unexpected troubles at the ranch. He had learned that quick actions were helpful only when guided by a calm mind. He slowly guided his horse forward, making sure not to startle either the girl or the man. When he was close enough, he spoke in a steady voice, loud enough for them to hear but gentle enough not to cause panic. "Is everything all right here?" he asked, keeping his eyes focused but friendly. The man turned sharply toward him, clearly surprised to see someone there. He tightened his hold on the girl for a moment, as if unsure of what to do. The girl's eyes widened when she saw Clayton. She didn't speak, but her expression said more than words ever could. It was the look of someone who wished desperately for help. Clayton didn't move too quickly. He let the horse stand still and looked at both of them calmly, giving the man a chance to explain. But the man didn't explain anything. Instead, he seemed displeased that Clayton had appeared. His voice came out sharp and defensive as he said, This is none of your business. Go on your way. Clayton understood immediately that this was not a simple family disagreement or a misunderstanding. The girl's shaking and quiet tears told him everything he needed to know. And although the man wanted him to leave, Clayton could not do that. He couldn't ride away and leave the girl alone with someone who was clearly upset and handling her in a harmful manner. He kept his voice steady, trying not to make the situation more tense. "I'm just checking," he said calmly. "The girl looks upset. I want to make sure she's all right." The man frowned deeply, taking a step back but still holding the girl by the arm. He seemed unsure whether to respond with anger or fear. Clayton noticed the girl wince slightly, her shoulders tightening as she tried to steady herself. Clayton slowly slid down from his horse. He moved gently, showing he meant no harm. His horse stood quietly behind him, sensing the seriousness in Clayton's movements. Clayton walked a few steps forward but kept a safe distance. He didn't want to make the man feel cornered. He simply wanted him to understand that hurting someone was not acceptable. The girl looked at Clayton with hope and fear mixed together. She didn't know him, but she could feel something in his presence, a sense of safety she had not felt in a long time. Clayton spoke again, in a tone that was both calm and firm. "Why don't you let her stand on her own? She looks scared." The man hesitated. His grip loosened slightly. His eyes darted between Clayton and the girl. Clayton could see that the man was thinking about what to do next. Clayton stayed steady, patient, waiting for the right moment. In his mind, Clayton already knew he wouldn't leave the girl here no matter what happened. He couldn't. His heart wouldn't let him. But he also didn't want to create panic or make the man act in a way that could put the girl at more risk. He needed to guide the moment gently. The girl took a small step to the side, trying to move away from the man's hand. Her breath came out shaky. Clayton offered her a warm, reassuring look. He wanted her to know she wasn't alone anymore. "Let's talk," Clayton said softly to the man. "No one needs to be upset. I just want to understand what's going on." But the man didn't want to talk. His face tightened, and he took a step forward as if to block the girl from leaving. The girl flinched slightly, and that tiny movement was enough for Clayton to make a decision deep inside his heart. He would not walk away from this. He stayed still for a moment, giving the man one last chance to step back peacefully. But when the man showed no sign of calming down, Clayton knew that things would not resolve easily. He didn't want conflict, but he also couldn't allow the girl to remain in a frightening and unsafe situation. The girl glanced at Clayton again, her eyes silently asking for help. That look settled everything. Clayton's calm strength grew roots in the ground beneath him. He felt steady, prepared, and sure of himself. The quiet evening road that had once seemed peaceful now carried a heavy moment. But Clayton was ready to carry that weight. He had always believed that doing the right thing mattered, even when it was difficult. And in that moment, doing the right thing meant protecting the girl standing before him. What Clayton didn't know was that this choice, the choice to stop, the choice to help, would change not only the girl's life, but his own in ways he could not imagine yet. Clayton stood quietly, feeling the weight of the moment press heavily on his shoulders. He looked at the young girl, who seemed so fragile and scared that even the soft wind made her flinch. He could sense that she had been carrying fear for a long time, and this situation was not something new to her. Clayton's heart tightened. He wanted to help her without causing more trouble or making things worse. The man holding her arm was still tense, almost ready to defend his actions. His eyes shifted between Clayton and the girl, unsure of what to expect next. Clayton kept his own voice calm, steady, and respectful, because he knew sudden loud words could make everything worse. He took a small step forward, showing he was concerned, not aggressive. "Let her breathe," Clayton said quietly. "She's scared. That's all I'm saying." For a moment, the man looked away. probably thinking about what Clayton had just said. His grip softened just a little, not completely, but enough for the girl to straighten her back slightly. Clayton noticed every small movement, every tiny shift in her posture, every little sign that she needed help, but didn't know how to ask for it. Clayton knew that in moments like this, people didn't always speak the truth openly. Sometimes their actions said more. The girl's actions, her trembling hands, her lowered head, her unsteady breathing, everything she did silently told him that she wanted to get away, even if her voice could not say it yet. Clayton stayed calm. He knew that he had to keep the situation from heating up, because if the man became more upset, the girl might end up in even more distress. Clayton's goal was simple: make sure the girl was all right and help her reach safety, but he needed to do it wisely. The man finally spoke again, his voice low and annoyed. "Why are you here? This is not your concern." Clayton stayed gentle. "I'm here because someone looks like they need help. That becomes my concern." The girl looked up at Clayton, her eyes full of silent pleading. She didn't dare move too much, but her gaze said everything. That one look told Clayton he had made the right choice by stopping. It also gave him the confidence to continue. Clayton's horse stood quietly behind him, as if understanding the seriousness of the moment. It didn't move or make noise. The air was thick with tension, the kind that makes everything feel heavier. Clayton breathed slowly, thinking carefully. He wasn't a man who rushed into problems without understanding them, but he also wasn't someone who would turn away from someone in need. He wanted to give the man a chance to calm down, to understand that force wasn't the answer. "Let's give her some space," Clayton suggested, making sure his tone stayed respectful. "She's young. Maybe she just needs someone to listen to her." The man hesitated. He looked down at the girl and then back at Clayton. The expression on his face showed conflict, part frustration, part confusion. Clayton knew he had to continue speaking calmly if he wanted the situation to improve. "Look," Clayton continued, "no one wants trouble. I'm not here to fight. I just want everyone to be okay. That's all." His gentle words seemed to affect the girl more than the man. Her eyes softened as if she wanted to trust him. She had probably met many people who ignored her troubles, but now someone was standing up for her. Clayton could see that she was trying hard not to cry, her lips pressed tightly together. The man finally released her arm, though not fully stepping away. The girl quickly moved half a step behind Clayton, still cautious, still shaking a bit. Clayton didn't look back at her because he didn't want to make her feel exposed. Instead, he kept his attention on the man. "That's better," Clayton said softly. "Now let's talk." But the man wasn't in a talking mood. His voice rose slightly, though still not loud. "She belongs with me. Don't interfere." Clayton took a slow breath. He didn't like the word "belongs" when it referred to a person. People weren't objects. They didn't belong to anyone, especially not someone who frightened them. "She's a person," Clayton said gently but firmly. "She has a right to feel safe. Look at her. She's scared." The man didn't respond. He simply looked at the girl, then at Clayton, as if unsure of what to do. His shoulders dropped a little, and his stance became slightly less rigid. Clayton saw his chance. He moved a bit closer to the girl, positioning himself in a way that made her feel protected without making the man feel trapped. The girl took another small step closer to Clayton, as if his presence was the only thing keeping her steady. "What's your name?" Clayton asked her softly. Her voice was quiet, barely above a whisper. "Maya." Clayton offered a small, reassuring smile. "Maya? That's a nice name." He kept his voice gentle, hoping she would feel a little safer. The man seemed to grow restless when he heard her speak to Clayton, as if her speaking meant she was slipping out of his control. Clayton noticed the man's uneasiness, so he maintained his calm posture. Clayton spoke again, addressing the man. "Maybe we should all take a breath. Maya looks tired. Let her decide what she wants. That suggestion changed everything. The man's expression tightened again, and Clayton realized he wasn't going to calm down easily. The man took a step forward, and Maya instantly reacted by moving even closer to Clayton, gripping his shirt lightly as if she couldn't stop herself. The simple act of her reaching out made Clayton's decision clear. He had to protect her. His voice remained calm, but now it carried a quiet strength. "Stop," he said, raising a hand slowly. "This isn't right. She's afraid." The man froze. His eyes darted back and forth between Clayton and Maya. He seemed unsure of what to do next, but his frustration was obvious. Clayton didn't want the man to act out of anger or fear. He wanted to guide the situation toward a peaceful ending, but he also had to be prepared. Maya tugged gently at Clayton's sleeve, as if asking him silently to help her leave. Clayton didn't turn to look at her, but he sensed her message and understood it clearly. He spoke softly to Maya without taking his eyes off the man. "It's okay. You're all right now." The man finally spoke again, but this time his voice had lost some of its strength. "She needs to come with me." Clayton shook his head slowly. "Not like this. Not when she's scared. Let her rest. Let her feel safe." Maya's breathing grew quicker as the man stepped forward again. Clayton gently positioned his arm in front of her in a protective way. He wasn't acting aggressively, just making it clear she was not to be approached without her comfort. The man's frustration rose again, and he reached toward Maya. Maya stepped back in fear. That one movement, her retreat, her fear, her silent plea, was all Clayton needed to make a final decision. He understood that he couldn't leave her here. He couldn't walk away and hope things would get better. He had seen enough to know she needed help right now, not later. Clayton stood tall, his voice steady. "She's coming with me." The man's face changed immediately. Shock, anger, disbelief, all mixed together. But Clayton didn't look away. His calmness made him strong, and his strength came from doing the right thing. Maya whispered, "Please," in a trembling voice that barely reached Clayton's ears. That soft plea was everything. It made Clayton more determined than ever. He took Maya gently by her arm, not forcefully, not quickly, but with a comforting, protective touch. "Come with me," he whispered to her. "You're safe." Maya nodded shakily, trusting him completely. She didn't look back at the man. Clayton guided her slowly toward his horse. Every step felt heavy but hopeful. The man didn't move for a moment, stunned at what was happening. Clayton spoke one last time to him, still calm. "Let her go. It's the right thing." The man didn't reply. His silence was enough to show that Clayton's presence and Maya's fear had changed the situation entirely. Clayton helped Maya climb onto his horse. She held the saddle tightly, still trembling but relieved. Clayton mounted behind her, keeping one arm around her lightly so she wouldn't fall. The horse felt the tension and prepared to move. Clayton gave a final look at the man, making sure he understood that the girl was not returning to him. Then, with a gentle nudge, the horse began to move, carrying Clayton and Maya away from that tense clearing and toward a new beginning. Clayton felt Maya trembling as she sat in front of him on the horse. Her hands were gripping the saddle so tightly that her knuckles had turned pale. The moment the horse began to move, she let out a shaky breath, as if she had been holding it inside for too long. Clayton kept his arm around her carefully, giving her enough space so she wouldn't feel trapped, but staying close enough to make sure she didn't slip or fall. He wanted her to feel secure, even in this moment of fear and confusion. They moved along the dirt path, the horse carrying them steadily away from the clearing. Clayton didn't push the horse too fast at first. He didn't want to frighten Maya further. The night was slowly taking over the sky, and the road ahead was quiet except for the soft sounds of hooves touching the ground. Clayton felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, but he didn't let it overwhelm him. He knew he had made the right choice. Behind them, the man they left stood frozen for a long moment. Clayton wasn't sure if he would follow, shout, or act out of anger, so Clayton kept listening carefully, prepared for anything. But the forest remained silent. No footsteps, no shouting, no signs of anyone following. Even the crickets began to come out again, filling the cool night with soft, rhythmic sounds. It was as if the forest itself was calming down after witnessing something tense. Clayton leaned slightly forward so Maya could hear him without feeling pressured. "You're safe now," he said gently. "You don't have to be scared." Maya didn't reply immediately. Instead, she took another shaky breath, her shoulders rising and falling as she tried to calm herself. After a few moments, she whispered, "Thank you." Her voice was soft, tired, and full of emotions she couldn't express yet. Clayton nodded, though she couldn't see it. "You don't have to thank me. Anyone in my place should have helped." But deep inside, Clayton knew the truth. Not everyone would have stopped. Not everyone would have stepped between a frightened girl and a threatening situation. He didn't think of himself as a hero, but he knew he couldn't have turned away. Something in Maya's eyes had spoken to him, an unspoken plea that he couldn't ignore. As they continued along the path, Clayton guided the horse into a gentle trot, making sure Maya didn't feel uncomfortable. The road curved through open fields where the tall grass swayed softly with the evening wind. The sky was turning darker, but there was still enough light to see the faint outlines of distant hills and trees. It was peaceful, a big contrast to what had happened earlier. After a while, Clayton felt Maya's trembling slow down. She was still nervous, but the fear wasn't gripping her as tightly as before. Clayton wanted to help her relax, so he began speaking slowly, choosing simple, comforting words. "Do you feel okay up there? If you want to rest or stop for a moment, just tell me," he said. Maya hesitated before answering. "I'm okay, I didn't know anyone would help me." Clayton felt a heaviness in her words. It wasn't just fear she carried, there was loneliness too, the kind that came from feeling unheard and unnoticed for a long time. "Well," he said gently, "everyone deserves help, especially when they're scared." Silence followed his words, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Maya seemed to be thinking, processing everything that had happened. Clayton didn't rush her. He allowed the quiet to stay, giving her the space to breathe. After several minutes, Maya spoke again, her voice soft but clearer. "Where are we going?" Clayton had already planned it in his mind. He knew a place where she could be safe, people he trusted, people who cared about helping others without asking too many questions. They lived in a small house near the edge of town, simple but warm, always open to those in need. "I'm taking you somewhere safe," Clayton answered. "A family I know. They're kind. They'll help you rest, eat, and feel safe until we figure out what to do next." Maya turned her head slightly, as if trying to look back at him, though she couldn't see much. "Will they be nice?" Clayton smiled softly. "Very nice. They won't let anything bad happen to you." She nodded again, and Clayton felt her body relax just a little. For the first time since he had seen her in the clearing, she seemed to allow herself a moment of hope. They rode for a while longer. The road widened as they approached the open fields. The sky was now a soft blend of blues and purples, with a few stars beginning to appear. Clayton loved this time of evening, the peaceful transition between day and night, but tonight he was more focused on Maya's safety than the beauty around him. At one point, Maya adjusted her sitting position slightly, and Clayton noticed she was trying to stop her hands from shaking. He wished he could make her feel safe instantly, but healing didn't work that way. It took time, patience, and trust. "You're doing great," he said quietly. "It's okay to feel scared. What matters is that you're away from danger now." Maya nodded again. clutching the saddle less tightly this time. Her breathing had calmed. After some more minutes passed, Clayton gently pulled the reins to slow the horse down. They were approaching a small creek that flowed across the path. The horse stepped carefully over the shallow water, and Maya gasped softly at the cool splash against her feet. For a brief second, the simple sensation surprised her and distracted her from her fear. Clayton smiled to himself. Sometimes small moments helped people more than long speeches. Once they crossed the creek, the path became smoother. The wind carried the faint scent of wood smoke from distant houses. The town wasn't too far now. Clayton wanted to reach the family's home before it grew completely dark, so Maya wouldn't feel frightened by shadows or unfamiliar surroundings. As they continued riding, Maya whispered, "He always gets angry. I didn't know how to stop it." Clayton listened carefully. He didn't interrupt her. He understood that when someone finally felt safe after a long time, words began to flow slowly, like water finding its way after being blocked. "You don't have to talk about it now," he said gently. "You're tired. You've been through a lot. When you're ready, we'll listen. No pressure." Maya nodded. She seemed relieved that she wasn't forced to explain everything immediately. She leaned forward slightly, letting the gentle rhythm of the horse soothe her. Clayton noticed that she was beginning to trust him, even if just a little. And that trust meant everything to him. It meant she no longer felt alone. They passed through a long stretch of open land where the moon began rising, casting pale light over the road. Maya looked up at it, her voice soft with wonder. "It's bright." Clayton smiled. "It's a good night. The moon is watching over us." For the first time, Maya let out a tiny laugh. It was small and fragile, but it carried hope. Clayton felt warmth spread through his chest. Hearing that tiny laugh made every difficult moment worth it. Soon, the warm glow of lanterns from nearby homes came into view. Clayton knew they were close. The family he trusted lived in a cozy house with a wooden fence and a small flower garden. Even from a distance, their home looked comforting. "We're almost there," he told Maya. "Just a little more." Maya nodded. Her fear now mixed with curiosity and cautious hope. The closer they got to the house, the more relaxed Maya became. The sight of a safe place, simple, quiet, welcoming, seemed to ease her heart. Clayton slowed the horse and brought it to a gentle stop near the fence. Maya looked around, her eyes wide, taking in the peaceful surroundings. She didn't speak, but her shoulders no longer trembled. Clayton helped her down carefully, making sure she didn't lose her balance. She stood close to him, still unsure of what to expect, but clearly relieved she wasn't alone. The porch light flickered, and soon the door opened. A warm voice called out, "Clayton? Is that you?" Clayton nodded and guided Maya forward. "It's me, and I brought someone who needs help." Maya took a deep breath, ready to step into a place she hoped would finally bring her safety, kindness, and a new beginning. When the door opened, warm yellow light spilled out onto the porch, making the night feel a little less heavy. A kind-looking woman stood there, holding the edges of her shawl to keep the cool breeze away from her shoulders. Her face softened when she saw Clayton, and then her eyes shifted gently toward Maya, who stood shyly behind him. Clayton stepped forward with calm confidence, as if he had brought many people in need to this home before. "This is Maya," he said softly. "She needs a safe place tonight." The woman nodded without asking any questions. She had known Clayton for years, and she understood that if he brought someone to her doorstep, it meant that person truly needed kindness and shelter. She moved aside and said, "Come in." "Dear, you're welcome here." Maya hesitated. She looked around the small porch, then back at Clayton. The shadows from the lantern flickered on the wooden walls, and the scent of warm food drifted from inside. Everything felt gentle, calm, and safe, very different from the fear she had felt earlier. Clayton gave her a small, reassuring nod, silently telling her it was all right. Maya stepped forward slowly, her hands still held together nervously. When she crossed the doorway, she felt a strange mixture of relief and uncertainty. She didn't know this place. She didn't know these people, but the warmth here felt comforting. Inside, the room glowed with soft light. There was a wooden table with a warm pot on it, a few chairs, and a small fireplace crackling quietly in the corner. A man, older than Clayton but with a friendly smile, stood near the table. He wiped his hands on a cloth and looked at Maya kindly. "This must be our guest," he said gently. "Welcome, young lady. You're safe here." Maya lowered her eyes shyly but managed to whisper, "Thank you." Clayton walked in behind her, taking off his hat and placing it on a hook near the door. The woman closed the door gently, shutting out the cold night air. She walked over to Maya and placed a warm hand on her shoulder, not too close, not too firm, just enough to show comfort. "You must be tired," she said kindly. "Come sit down." Maya allowed herself to be guided to a wooden chair. She sat carefully, as if afraid she might not be allowed to. Clayton pulled another chair and sat close enough so she would feel safe. The older man ladled some warm soup into a bowl and placed it gently in front of her. "Here, eat slowly. You don't have to talk right now." Maya looked at the bowl, her eyes filling with emotions she struggled to hide. She had not tasted anything warm or comforting in a long time. The steam rising from the bowl felt like a blessing she didn't know she needed. She lifted the spoon carefully and took a small sip. The warmth spread through her chest, relaxing her in a way she hadn't felt in years. Clayton watched her quietly. Seeing her take that first comfortable breath made him feel a little lighter, too. After a few minutes, Maya looked up and whispered, "It's good. Thank you." The woman smiled warmly. "There's more if you want. You're not a burden here." Those words made Maya lower her spoon for a moment. She blinked as if she wasn't used to being treated with such simple, sincere kindness. Clayton leaned forward slightly. "These people take care of everyone," he said softly. "You're in good hands." Maya looked around the room again. The home was simple but filled with warmth. There were small decorations on the walls, handmade blankets folded neatly, and a gentle smell of herbs. Everything felt peaceful, as if this place had protected many hearts before hers. After she finished eating, the woman brought a warm blanket and placed it around Maya's shoulders. Maya held it close, surprised at how comforting something so simple could feel. "You can rest here tonight," the woman said gently. "We have a spare room. You don't need to worry about anything." Maya nodded. I don't know how to thank you." "You already did," the woman replied softly. "By letting us help." Clayton stood up slowly. He could see that Maya was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. He knew she needed rest more than anything. He walked over to her and spoke in a steady, calm tone. "Get some sleep," he said. "Tomorrow will be a better day." Maya looked up at him with grateful eyes. "Thank you for helping me," she whispered. Clayton shook his head gently. "Anyone should have helped. I'm just glad I was there." The older man showed Maya to a small room at the end of the hallway. Inside, there was a clean bed with soft pillows and a handmade quilt. A candle flickered on a small table, giving the room a gentle glow. Maya stepped inside and ran her fingers across the quilt, feeling the warmth and softness. "This room is yours for as long as you need it," the older man said kindly. She nodded again, unable to speak, overwhelmed by the kindness surrounding her. After he left, Maya sat on the bed and finally let herself breathe freely. She looked around. Everything was simple, quiet, safe. For the first time in a long time, she felt that she was not alone. She closed her eyes for a moment, holding the blanket close to her chest. Meanwhile, Clayton and the couple sat in the main room. They spoke in low voices, discussing how they could help Maya further. Clayton explained what he had seen and how frightened she had been. The couple listened with concern, nodding understandingly. "We'll take care of her," the woman said with determination. "She needs gentle days and patient hearts." Clayton felt relieved. He trusted them completely. After a while, Clayton stood up and walked to the door. He looked back at the couple. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "She needed a place like this." "You brought her here," the man replied with a smile. "That was the brave part." Clayton stepped outside and closed the door softly behind him. The night air was cool and the stars shone brightly above him. He walked toward his horse and rested his hand on its neck. The horse breathed calmly, as if understanding that the hard part of the day had passed. Clayton mounted his horse and took one last look at the warm light glowing through the home's windows. He felt a peaceful satisfaction knowing that Maya was safe for the night and that she finally had a place where she could heal. As he rode back toward his ranch, he thought about the quiet strength she had shown, the courage it took for her to trust him, and how her small smile earlier had made everything worth it. The next morning, Maya woke up to the smell of warm bread and sunlight streaming through the window. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she remembered the comforting voices, the warm blanket, the safe room. She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. She stepped into the kitchen where the couple greeted her with cheerful smiles. They gave her breakfast and asked how she had slept. She answered slowly but honestly, saying she felt safe and rested. In the following days, Maya began to relax. She helped with small chores around the house, talked a little more each day, and learned to smile without fear. The couple treated her with gentle respect, showing her that kindness still existed. Clayton visited often, always checking to make sure she was doing all right. Each time he came, Maya's face brightened just a little more. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hills, Maya sat outside in the garden. She looked at the sky, feeling calm inside. She thought about the moment Clayton had appeared, the moment he had offered her a way out, a chance at a new beginning. She whispered softly to herself, "I was saved." And she promised herself that one day she would help someone else the same way she had been helped. Clayton, riding home across the quiet fields, felt proud, not of himself, but of Maya. She was strong, braver than she realized, and she now had a future filled with safety and hope. The night sky stretched above him, peaceful and wide, as he rode on with a quiet heart, knowing he had done the right thing at the right time.